everyone plays the integral part. We aren't a silver bullet, but we do see ourselves as a critical component of the consortium that helps drive past that oil dependency that the world has.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Biomarket Insights TV. My name is Paul MacDonald and I'm delighted today to be joined by Gaetano Dedual, CTO, and Jacob Kohn, CEO of Futurity Bioventures. Futurity is a New Zealand-based biotech company making better products from renewable trees to replace oil. Hi Gaetano and Jacob, how are you today?
Very good, thank you. Paul, how are you?
Yeah, great, thank you. How are you, Jacob?
Very well, thanks, Paul.
Fantastic. Listen, it's great to have you on the show today. Today's episode is entitled Replacing Oil with New Zealand Pine, and our viewers are going to be really interested to learn about the power of trees, the biomaterial manufacturing process, and the importance of collaboration as we transition to a bio-based economy. So lots of great stuff to get our teeth sunk into. But before we get into the details and before we explore Futurity, perhaps you can give me a bit of background to yourselves and what attracted you to the biotech sector.
Yeah, sure. For me, how I was attracted to the biotech sector really started when I was young. I had quite a strong affinity for the outdoors, which has given me a bit of drive to look after the natural world and really help with this huge transition away from oil. My background's in chemical and process engineering, and I completed a PhD here in New Zealand, looking at the production of specialty chemicals and materials from pine wood. And throughout that whole experience, really saw that wood could be a real pillar in helping the world transition away from oil. And yeah, haven't looked back since, and have had the pleasure of working with Jacob and our other co-founder Rupert Patterson on bringing a biorefinery here to New Zealand.
For me, it was a similar journey with regards to a strong affinity with the outdoors and natural environment. My background's in product design and development. Got a master's in applied science, and my first few years in industry was as an industrial designer. And through that journey, you really get to understand how much influence product designers have over the environmental footprint of products, but perhaps a lack of choice in materials. So that really drove me personally to try and look at what we could do from New Zealand in terms of better materials, and very lucky to have people like Gaetano with their expertise to assist in that.
Great, thank you. And I mean, I guess I'm not surprised that, you know, the outdoor world and nature, especially you live in a beautiful country in New Zealand, so you know that's going to inspire you. You spend a lot of time in the outdoors, I imagine.
Yeah, when we're not on Zoom calls.
yeah. Can't see the great outdoors from a Zoom call. So, listen, can you give me? It'd be great to have a little bit of a quick helicopter view of the business and how it's structured, please.
Sure. So Rupert Patterson and I, our other co-founder, started Futurity Group, which is basically a ventures group which both invests and looks to implement businesses which wrap around and try to improve something, whether that's a better packaging product or like what we're doing here with Futurity Bioventures. So it's really about identifying a core issue and opportunity that can be taken to the world from New Zealand. And that's the main motivation and structure behind what we're doing.
Okay, and one of the things I absolutely loved, I loved your stated mission. You know, your mission on your website is to help move the world past oil dependency and improve everything. Now, it's a pretty strong and powerful statement, which I absolutely love. But really interested in how did you arrive at that?
Yeah, and we don't think we're necessarily the silver bullet, but a part of the solution. And the sentiment that we're trying to carry there is that everything is either distributed by or made by petrochemicals. So trying to convey the influence that petroleum has on everything as to what is actually possible with a tree. We're actually very targeted in what we're trying to produce based on commercial viability, but the future potential is really quite vast.
Yeah, and it's important, isn't it, that silver bullet phrase. You know, when I look at sustainability and climate protection, I think too many people are trying to say this is the solution, and it's not. It's a wide range of behavior changes and innovations and everything else. So you're saying that you're very much part of a bigger movement, maybe.
Yeah, most definitely. And a lot of education that needs to happen there, I think, because people sort of assume that there needs to be a blanket product or solution for this category and that quarter category, but it's not quite so simple.
Yeah, and it's frustrating. I find it frustrating when you see individuals. I talk about this quite a lot. When you see individuals who are understandably passionate and promoting their solution, almost competing sort of aggressively with somebody else's solution. And I know later on we talk a bit more about collaboration, and surely that has to be the way forward, collaboration over competition, which is going to speed up the transition to a bioeconomy, right?
Yeah, completely agree.
Good,
collaboration.
Good. So it would be really interesting to get a bit of detail behind the process. So if you could talk me through the process from harvesting the trees to producing the advanced bio-based materials.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, firstly we procure harvested logs and then debark the wood and process it into a fine chip. This chip is then passed through our proprietary pre-treatment technology, which really enables highly efficient and effective breaking down of wood in our next two steps. And those two technologies that we then pass the wood through, we've licensed from Sweetwater Energy and MetGen. So firstly, that pre-treated chip is passed through the Sweetwater Energy process, which is an extrusion-based system that separates the wood into its real core building blocks, and that's cellulose, lignin, and hemicellulose. The cellulose is further refined into our nanocellulose product, and then the lignin is further broken down using the MetGen technology, which is enzymatic fractionation. And basically what that does is it's quite analogous to the oil industry, where it breaks it down into more uniform and same molecular weight fractions that can really be used in advanced applications and perform highly. The hemicellulose material is then processed through an anaerobic digester, where we've been able to prove that this works, and also from our modelling estimate that this has the ability to provide over 100% of our thermal energy requirements through utilising biogas to power the process and provide that industrial heat. And this really drastically reduces the impact of our materials that we can provide to our customers and reduce their carbon footprint.
And I don't know if this is a silly question or not. How long does that process take?
It's in the continual process that operates continuously. So from wood entering to wood out, it's only a few hours for the wood to be passed through the Sweetwater process. That actually occurs very quickly. So it's an amazing technology that's really redefined wood processing, and then from there, enzymatic treatment requires several hours of contact with enzymes, etc. But it is very quick, and on a continuous basis, you've got a constant stream of products coming out from the biorefinery.
Great. And that leads me on to my next question really nicely. So what products are you producing, and how are they being used, or how will they be used in everyday life?
Yeah, so those nanocellulose and lignin fractions that we talked about, those are our core products. And what our philosophy has been is to try and use all the amazing components of a tree. So how can we utilize all aspects of it? And that's why we've looked to target those separate fractions of lignin, our cellulose, and also the hemicellulose to enable that thermal energy utilization. And what we target is a cost and performance advantage over the incumbent. So most likely this is petroleum, and we have quite a few really great examples that we like to talk about, particularly in a multi-layer packaging solution that we've been developing. And that looks at basically utilizing our lignin and cellulose product together, and you can sort of think of it as reassembling a tree where our nanocellulose can provide gas barrier and grease resistant properties, and then the lignin can provide water resistance properties, and that helps us replace aluminium foil as well as polymer linings that are on what you'd find on the inside of coffee cups or food takeaway containers. And the beauty of this is that when these materials enter the recycling streams, fiber recovery, they can be effectively repulped and recycled completely, avoiding some of those microplastics issues that arise from those thin film linings which are applied to paper products, and as well can be composted. So it really encompasses all of those end-of-life applications, as well as reducing some of the impacts of the products that consumers use. And then also we've got other applications within polyurethane foams and phenolic resins, and really looking at utilizing our materials as active components that can substitute oil and not as fillers. So it's really exciting because we've been really pleased with the results to date, and there's a clear pathway forward for us to engage with customers and develop those relationships and prove those cost and performance benefits.
Great. I mean, with the packaging industry, that's been a huge challenge, isn't it? Using a paper-based product that has the performance of the incumbent materials, but that doesn't, what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't harm the recycling, the recovery and recycling process. You don't have, it doesn't contaminate, does it? So that must be one of the biggest benefits, right? Because the material and the recycling infrastructure have got to work together.
Yeah, exactly. And once once we're able to get to the point where we can provide at scale this kind of solution, we're sure that there'll be a very strong uptake, because it ticks many of the boxes that people are looking for and what we're seeing in the market.
Yeah, and you mentioned sort of customers very briefly then. So I guess who are your customers, and what challenges are you helping them to overcome?
Yeah, so it's very varied. The challenges are quite different depending on what area you're looking to apply your materials, what industries they're in. But we work with several large national and international companies who are predominantly utilizing petroleum-derived incumbents. And really what this is coming to, and this is our next stage of development, is undertaking the application development pathway with them to supply material to test it in their process, to validate that cost and performance story, and get to a point where we can start talking about commercial supply agreements to really validate the business case for us to build this biorefinery and supply them in mass.
Right. Okay. Great. And clearly, we mentioned earlier on in this episode around collaboration, and clearly with the type of business you are, and when you just mentioned about the customers and working together. So here's my next question is, how important is collaboration? How integral is it to your business? And can you summarize your approach and the benefits of some of the major partners that you collaborate with?
Yeah. I like to think DNA is, sorry, the collaboration is in our DNA, really, because look, we take licensed technology and looking to bring it here to New Zealand to process wood, to expedite that process, because we saw that there's this world-leading technology that we can bring here to advance ourselves and work off work alongside companies like Sweetwater Energy and MetGen. And we've been tremendously lucky to be surrounded by such great partners, as well as onshore support here in New Zealand through CRI. So we work quite closely with Scion, Callaghan Innovation, MPI, and yeah, we couldn't be happier with the ecosystem that we've built around ourselves here. And yeah, we understand that competition is important, but that the opportunity is just so vast, and also the the requirement of the undertaking that's needed here to transition the world past oil. That it's about helping us all succeed. And I think you hit the nail on the head before, that everyone plays the integral part. You know, we aren't a silver bullet, but we do see ourselves as a critical component of the consortium that helps drive past that oil dependency that the world has.
Yeah, so that phrase is great. A critical part of the consortium. It's a really nice phrase, isn't it? I think the the other thing, that there is so much confusion out there at the moment. You know, there's so much confusion with anything to do with sustainability,
Mm.
and however various parties come together to try and reduce that confusion, so that wherever you are in the value chain, you've got more confidence in what you're doing, and you're confident in order to make your statements. We're finding at the moment that quite a few people are sort of going into their shells because they think they're doing the right thing, and they might be, but they don't want to publicize it because they get accused of greenwashing. And that's because there's so much sort of confusion and counterclaim. And I think really you can only dilute that confusion through collaboration and trying to get a singular voice. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely agree, and that's probably one of the most challenging aspects in what we do is the education piece, and having that concise. How do you explain something very complex, and where there's a whole bunch of factors and influences that you need to analyze to really gauge gauge what the success and impact is, and how that can play its part in being a solution. It is very challenging, but it's something that's also terribly rewarding as well. And like doing those communication pieces, and when people understand, and it changes their viewpoint as well. I think it's really great to be a part of.
Yeah, I mean, that could be a whole nother episode, isn't it?
Yeah.
Communicating what you're doing to the various stakeholders who have very different objectives, brains, stances, and the rest of it. Okay, wonderful. So I guess let's look forward a few years, or over the horizon. What's next for Futurity?
I think Gaetano described it very well before. We call it stage two, which is about offtake securement, and that's a capital raise that we're currently in the middle of. And the response has been great, and engagement with capital markets. And that funding basically allows us to run further pilot plant trials to produce more products and inventory in the hundreds of kilos. And that allows us to work closely with our customers to prove that cost and performance basis in their process and products by their standards with their people. We think that's really key. It's fine to present someone with some results, but they don't believe you until they've gone and repeated that same thing themselves with their tricks, and can agree on the potential. So yeah, we're really looking forward to that next stage. As Gaetano said, there's a very clear pathway, and yeah, looking forward to getting into it.
And so are you actively looking for development partners and potential collaborators at the moment? So new partners?
Yes, yeah. We've got a very good consortium of collaborators around us currently, and there's been a great set of results that we've been able to deliver upon. And alongside those partners that will continue to work through the development process with, we are looking for new customers. We've got quite a bit of resource, and the driver here is to produce lots of materials to work with as many people as possible.
And is that only in New Zealand or international as well?
It's most definitely international.
Okay.
New Zealand has a very small domestic market. It is a focus for us, but we recognise the need to be an export player, as New Zealand is in most other industries. So international collaboration is key, and we think we're very well positioned for the Asia Pacific region.
Well, that's great. Obviously, our audience is a big chunk of our audience is sort of Northern Central Europe and North America. So that's really interesting, because I'm sure there's plenty of interested sort of collaborators which will be watching this episode over the next few sort of weeks or months. Okay, so I guess we're coming towards the end of this episode, and I always like to ask my guests this final question to leave on a bit of a high. So what environmentally friendly person or product or initiative has put a smile on your face recently? What's made you optimistic for the future?
Yeah, I think it's been great to see that there's a lot of sentiment around action out of COP26, and they definitely need to be held to account. And for the first, the majority of that conference, it seemed that there was a lot of talk about, where is the action? This all looks like discussion. So it is fantastic to see that, there are some larger moves and commitments being made, and the clock is ticking. So it's really about getting into it and starting to make the steps forward, which is great to see.
Wonderful. Well, I think that's a great way to end this episode with that positivity, because it hasn't always been the case with previous COPs. So let's hope that positivity and momentum is carried forward over the coming hours and days, and rather than weeks and months. So listen, that pretty much concludes this episode. I'd just like to invite any collaborative bio pioneers to please feel free to contact me at paul@biomarketinsights.com, and let's see what we can do together. So Gaetano and Jacob, thanks ever so much for your time. Loved your insights, loved what your business is doing. I wish you and all the team at Futurity all the best for the rest of the year, and hopefully we can meet in person one day. So take care, and I shall see you soon.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, look forward to it. Thank you, Paul.
Great, pleasure. Bye now.
Cheers.